My brother's wife hit my daughter with a belt for getting better grades than her son, and I made sure she regretted it forever. How dare you hit my daughter with a belt? The words exploded from my throat as I stared at my sister-in-law standing in my kitchen, leather belt still dangling from her trembling hand. My 9-year-old daughter Kaya was pressed against the counter behind me, sobbing, angry red welts already rising across her shoulders. She needed to learn some humility, Monica shot back, her face twisted with rage. Your precious little princess thinks she's better than everyone. You beat a child because she got good grades. I could barely comprehend what had just happened. Are you insane? I was disciplining her. Someone had to teach her not to show off. I grabbed my phone from the counter, my hand shaking so badly I could barely hold it. Get out of my house before I call the police. You're never coming near my daughter again. My name is Kaya. Yes, I know, my daughter and I share the same name. I'm Kaya Sr., she's Kaya Jr., though we usually just call her KJ to avoid confusion. But let me back up and explain how we got to this horrifying moment in my kitchen on what should have been an ordinary Thursday afternoon. I need to start by explaining the complicated relationship I have with my older brother Trevor and his wife Monica. Trevor and I used to be close growing up in suburban Minneapolis, building snow forts in winter and spending summers at Lake Minnetonka. But everything changed when he married Monica 6 years ago. She's one of those people who sees every situation as a competition and can't stand it when anyone in her orbit succeeds at something her family doesn't. It's exhausting, honestly. Every conversation becomes a subtle one-upmanship, every family gathering a minefield of comparisons and passive-aggressive comments. Monica has a 9-year-old son named Garrett from her previous marriage. He's a sweet kid, truly. The kind who shares his Halloween candy without being asked and draws you pictures of dinosaurs because he knows you think they're cool. But he's always struggled academically. He has learning disabilities that make reading and math particularly challenging for him, despite getting extra help at school and working with tutors at Sylvan Learning Center twice a week. My daughter KJ is also 9 years old, and she's always been naturally gifted when it comes to academics. She reads voraciously, currently obsessed with the Wings of Fire series, excels at math, and genuinely loves learning new things. I've never pushed her to be competitive with other kids. She just naturally gravitates toward challenging herself intellectually, the way some kids naturally gravitate toward sports or music. The problem started about 18 months ago when KJ and Garrett ended up in the same third-grade class at Westbrook Elementary. It became impossible to avoid comparisons between the two kids, especially during family gatherings when report cards and school achievements inevitably came up in conversation. KJ consistently made the principal's honor roll, while Garrett struggled to maintain passing grades. KJ tested into the GATE program, gifted and talented education, while Garrett needed additional support services through his IEP. KJ loved participating in the school spelling bee and math competitions, while Garrett preferred basketball and drama activities where he could excel. I tried to be sensitive about these differences. I really did. I never bragged about KJ's achievements in front of Garrett, and I always made sure to praise Garrett for his strengths in areas like athletics and creativity. The kid could act out entire scenes for movies with perfect comedic timing, and he just scored the winning basket in his last basketball game. But Monica took every one of KJ's successes as a personal attack on her son. It must be nice to have such an easy kid, she'd say with fake sweetness whenever KJ's grades came up. Some of us have children who actually have to work for their achievements. The implication was always that KJ's academic success was somehow less meaningful because it came naturally to her, while Garrett's struggles made his smaller victories more admirable. Never mind that KJ worked hard too, spending hours reading and practicing math problems because she genuinely enjoyed the challenge. Monica was determined to find fault with everything KJ did. If KJ helped Garrett with homework, Monica accused her of showing off. If KJ won the third-grade geography bee, Monica claimed it was because the teachers at Westbrook Elementary played favorites. If KJ read chapter books during family dinners at the Cheesecake Factory, Monica insisted she was just trying to make other kids feel bad about themselves. The situation escalated this past school year when both kids were in 4th grade. KJ tested into an accelerated math program that allowed her to take 5th grade mathematics while staying with her regular class for other subjects. It was a wonderful opportunity that would challenge her appropriately and keep her engaged in learning. Garrett, meanwhile, was still receiving remedial support in math and reading through the special education department. His teachers were working hard to help him catch up to grade level, and he was making progress, but it was slow and required a lot of extra effort from everyone involved. When KJ got accepted into the accelerated program, I was excited to share the news with family. Instead, Monica's reaction was immediate and hostile. "So now KJ gets special treatment while Garrett has to struggle in regular classes," she said during Sunday brunch at my parents' house in Edina. My mom had made her famous cinnamon rolls, but the tension at the table made them hard to swallow. "It's not special treatment," I explained, keeping my voice calm. "It's appropriate placement based on her abilities, just like Garrett gets appropriate support for his needs, right? So KJ gets rewarded for being smart while Garrett gets labeled as slow. That seems fair." My father, usually the peacekeeper, tried to intervene. "Monica, the kids have different needs. There's nothing wrong with that." But Monica had already decided that KJ's placement in accelerated math was somehow an attack on Garrett's self-esteem and academic confidence. My brother Trevor just sat there cutting his cinnamon roll into smaller and smaller pieces, saying nothing. That's become his signature move over the years, silent avoidance whenever conflict arises. Over the next few months, Monica became increasingly critical of KJ whenever we had family gatherings. She'd make comments about know-it-all kids, and showing off in front of adults. She'd ask KJ deliberately difficult questions, like naming all the US presidents in order or solving complex word problems, and then act like KJ was being arrogant if she knew the answers. I started limiting how much time KJ spent around Monica, because the constant criticism was starting to affect her. My bright, confident daughter began second-guessing herself and asking me if she should pretend not to know things so people would like her better. "Sweetheart, you never have to hide how smart you are," I told her one night while tucking her into her bed with the galaxy-themed comforter she loved. "The right people will appreciate you for exactly who you are." But the situation came to a head 3 weeks ago during what should have been a normal family playdate. Trevor and Monica were going through some marriage problems, surprise, surprise, and needed someone to watch Garrett for the afternoon while they went to couples therapy. I offered to have Garrett come over to our house in St. Louis Park so he and KJ could play together, which had always worked well in the past despite their academic differences. The kids were actually having a great time. They were playing Mario Kart on the Nintendo Switch, building with KJ's Lego sets, and working on an art project together, painting rocks they'd collected from our backyard to look like different animals. Garrett was in his element with the creative activities, and KJ was enjoying having a playmate for the afternoon. Around 3 o'clock, both kids were at the kitchen table working on homework. KJ was breezing through her accelerated math worksheets, problems involving fractions and decimals, while Garrett was struggling with basic multiplication tables that were part of his remedial math homework. I was in the living room folding laundry, a never-ending mountain of clothes that seemed to multiply overnight, when I heard Garrett getting frustrated with his math problems. "I can't do this," he was saying, his voice thick with frustration. "These numbers are too hard." "Want me to help you?" KJ offered kindly. My teacher, Mrs. Hoffman, showed us a trick for remembering multiplication tables. "You can use your fingers, too." "No, I don't want your help," Garrett replied. But not in a mean way. More like he was embarrassed about needing assistance from his cousin who was somehow ahead of him academically. That's when Monica showed up. She and Trevor had finished their therapy session early. And instead of calling to let me know they were coming, Monica just walked into my house using the spare key I'd given them for emergencies. I heard the front door open and close, then footsteps heading toward the kitchen. Monica walked in and immediately surveyed the scene, KJ working efficiently through advanced math problems while Garrett struggled with basic multiplication, his worksheet covered with eraser marks and frustrated scribbles. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice already carrying that dangerous edge I'd learned to recognize over the years. "Just homework time," I said, joining them in the kitchen with my laundry basket balanced on my hip. "Both kids have been working really well today." Monica picked up KJ's completed worksheets and looked through them, her expression growing darker with each page. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. "These are 5th grade math problems," she said accusingly, waving the papers like evidence of some crime. "Yes, KJ's in the accelerated program. Remember we talked about this at..." Then Monica picked up Garrett's worksheet and saw that he'd only completed 3 problems in the same time KJ had finished an entire assignment. Her jaw clenched and I could see the anger building behind her eyes like storm clouds gathering. "Garrett, why aren't you done with your homework yet?" she demanded. "The problems are hard, Mom. I'm trying my best. KJ's already finished with work that's much harder than yours, Monica said, her voice rising. Why can't you work as fast as she does? I could see where this was heading and tried to intervene. Monica, they're doing completely different types of work. You can't compare their progress like that. It's apples and oranges. Can't I? They're the same age, in the same grade. If KJ can finish her homework quickly, Garrett should be able to finish his too. That's not how learning works. But Monica wasn't listening to reason. Monica was focused on what she saw as evidence that Garrett was somehow failing compared to KJ. She pulled out a chair and sat down next to Garrett, hovering over his work, pointing out every mistake with increasing agitation. Garrett, I want you to finish this worksheet right now, she demanded. No more dawdling. You're perfectly capable of doing this work if you just focus. She started pushing him to work faster, her finger jabbing at each problem. The poor kid was getting more and more flustered under the pressure. His hand was shaking as he tried to write the answers. 7 times 8 is 56, not 54, she said impatiently. You should know this by now. We've practiced these facts 100 times. Garrett, try harder. KJ doesn't make these kinds of basic mistakes. That's when KJ, bless her heart, tried to help the situation. She put down her pencil and looked at her cousin with genuine kindness in her eyes. Actually, I make mistakes all the time, she said softly. Yesterday, I got confused about long division and had to start over 3 times. Mrs. Hoffman said making mistakes is how we learn. Monica whipped around to face KJ with a look of pure fury that made my blood run cold. Nobody asked for your input, young lady, she hissed. And don't lie to make Garrett feel better about his poor performance. I'm not lying, KJ said, her voice smaller now, confused by her aunt's anger. Everyone makes mistakes when they're learning new things. You think you're so smart, don't you? Monica said, her voice getting louder with each word. You think you're better than everyone else because you get good grades and win spelling bees and get put in special programs. No, I don't think I'm better than anyone. Yes, you do. I can see it in the way you act. The way you show off your perfect homework while Garrett struggles. You like making other kids feel stupid, don't you? You enjoy it. I stepped between them immediately, my mama bear instincts kicking into overdrive. Monica, that's enough. KJ was trying to be kind and supportive. She wasn't showing off anything. Kind? She's being condescending. She's rubbing her success in Garrett's face right here in your kitchen. That's absurd, but Monica was beyond rational discussion. She was in full attack mode, and KJ had become her target. This is exactly the problem, Monica continued, now standing and gesturing angrily, her chair scraping loudly against the tile floor. You've raised KJ to think she's special, some kind of child genius, and now she looks down on kids who aren't as naturally gifted. You're turning her into an arrogant little. KJ was starting to cry at this point, tears streaming down her cheeks. She'd never been yelled at like this before, and she couldn't understand why her aunt was so angry with her. Her small hands were trembling as she clutched her pencil. I'm sorry if I did something wrong, she said through her tears, her voice breaking. I was just trying to help Garrett. I didn't mean to. You were trying to show off, Monica screamed. You always have to be the smartest person in the room. You can't just let Garrett have one moment without making him feel inferior. That's when Garrett, who had been watching this whole confrontation unfold with horror on his face, finally spoke up. Mom, stop yelling at KJ, he said, his own voice shaking. She didn't do anything wrong. She's always nice to me. Don't defend her, Garrett. Can't you see how she makes you look bad with her perfect grades and her advanced classes? She's making a fool of you. She doesn't make me look bad. We're just different at school stuff. I'm better at basketball and drama. But Monica was too far gone to listen to reason, even from her own son. Monica was completely consumed by her resentment toward KJ and her jealousy over my daughter's academic success. Her face was flushed red, and there was a wildness in her eyes I'd never seen before. Someone needs to teach this little princess some humility, she said, her voice taking on a dangerous tone that made every hair on my body stand up. Monica walked over to where she had left her purse on the counter and pulled out her belt, a thick brown leather belt with a heavy silver buckle that caught the afternoon light streaming through the kitchen window. What are you doing? I asked, alarm bells going off in my head like sirens. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "I'm going to teach your daughter a lesson about respect and humility," Monica said, wrapping one end of the belt around her hand. "Monica, put that belt down right now," I commanded, moving to shield KJ with my body. "No. KJ needs to learn that actions have consequences, that being smart doesn't make her better than everyone else." And that's when we had the confrontation from the beginning of my story. Monica raised the belt and brought it down hard across KJ's back and shoulders. The sound of leather striking skin echoed through my kitchen like a gunshot. My daughter screamed in pain and shock, a sound that will haunt me for the rest of my life. She'd never been hit by anyone in her life, let alone beaten with a belt by her own aunt. I lunged forward and grabbed the belt out of Monica's hands before she could strike KJ again, yanking it so hard that Monica stumbled backward against the refrigerator. "How dare you hit my daughter with a belt?" I shouted, my voice shaking with rage and adrenaline. "She needed to learn some humility. Your precious little princess thinks she's better than everyone. You beat a 9-year-old child because she got good grades. Are you insane?" "I was disciplining her. Someone had to teach her not to show off. Get out of my house before I call the police. You're never coming near my daughter again." KJ was sobbing, pressed against the wall, and I could see angry red welts already rising on her back where the belt had struck her. Garrett was crying too, absolutely horrified by what his mother had done to his cousin. "Mom, why did you hurt KJ?" he asked through his tears, his voice small and broken. "She was just doing her homework." "Because she needed to learn a lesson about humility and respect," Monica said. But even she seemed shaken by what she'd just done. I immediately called 911, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. This was child abuse, and I wasn't going to handle it quietly to keep the peace or protect family harmony. Those days were over. While we waited for the police to arrive, I took pictures of KJ's injuries with my phone, documenting every welt, every mark. I tried to comfort her, holding her carefully so I wouldn't touch the injured areas. But she kept asking what she'd done wrong, why her aunt had hurt her, and whether she was really a bad person like Monica had said. "Baby, you didn't do anything wrong," I told her, smoothing her hair back from her tear-stained face. "Nothing at all. Aunt Monica has problems that have nothing to do with you." When the police arrived, 2 officers from the St. Louis Park Police Department, they took statements from everyone, including Garrett, who confirmed through his tears that his mother had hit KJ with a belt after yelling at her for being smart and getting good grades. Monica tried to claim that she'd been disciplining KJ for being disrespectful and talking back, but the officers weren't buying it. The evidence was too clear, and Garrett's statement contradicted her version of events. "Ma'am, you don't have the right to physically discipline someone else's child," Officer Williamson explained patiently. "And hitting a child with a belt crosses the line into abuse, regardless of the circumstances." She was being arrogant and condescending to my son. "She needed to be taught a lesson about showing off," Monica insisted. "That's not your decision to make, and physical violence is never an appropriate response to a child's academic success," Officer Bennett said firmly. "We're going to need you to come with us." Monica was arrested and charged with child abuse and assault. Trevor, who had arrived partway through the police interview, just stood there in shock, staring at his wife in handcuffs. We went to Abbott Northwestern Hospital to have KJ's injuries documented. The welts on her back were severe enough that she had to sleep on her stomach for several days while they healed. The doctor who examined her, Dr. Kathleen Morrison, was appalled by what had happened. "I've seen a lot of child abuse cases in my 20 years in emergency medicine," she told me privately in the hallway, her voice heavy with concern. "But attacking a child for academic achievement is particularly disturbing. It sends the message that success is something to be ashamed of." The news of what happened spread quickly through our family and community. Most people were horrified that Monica had beaten a child for getting good grades. But there were a few relatives, Monica's sister and her mother, who tried to minimize what had happened, calling it a misunderstanding or discipline that went too far. Trevor was caught in an impossible situation. He was horrified by what his wife had done to his niece, but he also felt pressure to support his marriage from Monica's family. "Kaya, I'm so sorry," he told me through tears after Monica's arrest, standing on my front porch because I wouldn't let him in the house. "I had no idea she was capable of something like this." "How could you not know?" I asked. "She's been making nasty comments about KJ for months." The signs were all there, Trevor. You just chose not to see them. The legal process was swift and decisive. Monica pleaded guilty to child abuse charges rather than going to trial. She was sentenced to 8 months in jail, 2 years of probation, mandatory anger management classes, and a restraining order that prohibited her from having any contact with KJ or me. The family consequences were severe and immediate. Most of our relatives cut Monica off completely after learning what she'd done. Garrett was removed from Monica's custody temporarily, while social services investigated the home environment. Trevor filed for divorce within a week of Monica's arrest. I can't continue being married to someone who violently attacked my niece, he told me. What if Garrett brings home a bad grade and she snaps again? I can't risk it. Monica lost her job as a dental hygienist at Aspen Dental after her conviction became public record. She also lost her apartment when she couldn't make rent from jail. 6 months after the incident, KJ is doing well physically and emotionally. We've been working with a wonderful therapist, Dr. Allison Crawford, to help her process what happened and ensure that she doesn't develop negative associations with academic achievement. KJ has actually become more confident and self-assured since the incident. She's learned that some people will resent her for her abilities, but that their problems are not her responsibility. I feel bad that Aunt Monica was so unhappy, she told me recently while we were making chocolate chip cookies together, her small hands carefully measuring out flour. But I'm not going to pretend to be less smart to make other people feel better about themselves. The restraining order remains in place, and I have no intention of ever allowing Monica back into our lives. Someone who would beat a child for academic success is not someone I trust around my daughter. Trevor and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship. He has full custody of Garrett now, and we've established clear boundaries about what happened. Garrett and KJ still see each other regularly, and their friendship has actually grown stronger through this ordeal. They understand now that they each have their own unique strengths, and there's no competition between them. My parents have been incredibly supportive throughout this entire nightmare. My father, who usually avoids conflict, testified at Monica's sentencing hearing about the pattern of jealousy and resentment he'd witnessed over the years. My mother has been spending extra time with KJ, making sure she knows she's loved and valued for who she is. Looking back, I realize there were so many warning signs I should have taken more seriously. The passive-aggressive comments, the constant comparisons, the way Monica's face would tighten whenever KJ received praise or recognition. But I never imagined she would escalate to physical violence. The experience has taught me that protecting your child sometimes means making hard choices that fracture family relationships. It means standing firm even when relatives accuse you of overreacting or not being forgiving enough. It means trusting your instincts when someone's behavior toward your child crosses a line. KJ is thriving now. She made the honor roll again this semester, won the school spelling bee for the 2nd year in a row, and was selected for an advanced science program starting next fall. But more importantly, she's learned that her worth isn't determined by other people's jealousy or resentment. Mom, she asked me the other night while I was tucking her in, do you think Aunt Monica will ever understand that I wasn't trying to make Garrett feel bad? I don't know, sweetheart, I answered honestly. Some people have a hard time separating their own feelings from reality. But that's not your burden to carry. I know, she said, snuggling into her pillow. Mrs. Hoffman says everyone has different talents, and being good at school doesn't make me better than anyone else. It just makes me good at school. That's exactly right. As I turned off her light and closed the door, I felt grateful that despite everything Monica tried to destroy in my daughter, her confidence, her joy in learning, her kindness toward others, KJ emerged stronger and more resilient. Monica will be released from jail in 2 months. I've already spoken with our attorney about ensuring the restraining order is extended indefinitely. Whatever relationship she tries to rebuild with her son is between her and Trevor, but she will never have access to my daughter again. Some people might say I'm being unforgiving or holding a grudge. But this isn't about forgiveness. This is about protection. This is about making sure my daughter knows that when someone crosses a line, especially a line as severe as physical violence, there are consequences that can't be undone with apologies or family pressure to reconcile. What would you do if a family member physically attacked your child because they were jealous of your child's achievements?